Good afternoon. Warm welcome, and I made myself a promise today, so I start on balcony 2. Hello. Nice to have you here, and also, of course, hello and warm welcome to everyone else. It's really, really great to see that house packed again with photographers, and see that house also packed with you guys all here, joining us in that bigger mission of Berlinale Talents as a place of community, of exchange, of learning, of celebrating cinema. And all of this, I think I can give you that promise, all of this will be fulfilled today with these beautiful and wonderful guests, important guests, because when we set up this topic and then we browsed through the festival program, we saw there is a match. And there's a two-time match this time with these two guests today. And there's also a very good and perfect match between me and the person I'm introducing today and now, which is the moderator of this session. It's Dana Linssen, a curator, a philosopher, and a daughter of actors. So I think that's a good match, and she's a friend of us for a very long time. Dana Linssen, thank you very much.
Florian, thank you. You should not have told this. The acting part is a secret. That's why I became a critic, so I could hide behind my screen and my paper. But I'm very honored, so welcome on my part as well, that you're all here up to the Paradis, the highest balcony in the theater. But without further ado, I really would like to introduce our two guests of today, which are Mr. John Malkovich and Miss Geraldine Chaplin. Please join me on the stage. No. That's where you sit. Well. Okay, thank you very much. Because today, yes, we're talking about pictures and moving images, but we're actually also going to talk a lot about what's happening behind the scenes, because we have all the talents here that have been selected from all these places over the world. Actors amongst them, but also cinematographers, directors, sound designers. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot to listen to for them, but at some point also to ask about your professions, your craft, your careers, your insights in the film world, and also the way you, in a way, are carriers of film history and bringing that into the theater. On the first day, when the opening session was here, I'm telling this more for our guests than for you, because you already know this. Annemie van Ackeren, the director of the How Theater, was speaking about the theme of this year's Talents, which is, you must be joking, humor in serious time. And she especially said something that spoke to me, how laughter can be liberating, especially in serious time, and how laughter is something that shakes up the body, and that relates laughter and the theme to theater. So we can talk in light ways about dark themes, and we can talk in serious ways about light themes. The reason you're both here is because you both play in the film Seneca, on the creation of earthquakes, although I think Seneca is what's really big on the posters that are all around Berlin now, which we're going to show a little clip of that film later on, but maybe it's good to start to kind of talk a little bit about how that project came to you. John, I understood that actually director Robert Schwenker more or less wrote the part of Seneca for you, so how did that land in your lap? And we have a microphone for you there.
It was some years ago. I don't remember exactly which year, but I had worked with Robert on a Hollywood movie called Red. He directed the first one, which was a comedy, and I enjoyed very much working with him and found him very funny in a kind of mordant way and sometimes a very light way. And I liked the way he directed and worked with his crew and actors. So I got an email from him and saying he was wants to do this movie about Seneca, read the script very quickly within a couple, 3 days, and a couple times, and wrote back and said, yes, I'll happily do it. And then eventually we did, they did, I think we eventually shot the 8th draft or 8th polish of it. And this was the first, but it kind of essentially remained the same in form and content for the most part.
So Seneca being a Stoic philosopher and a playwright, but also, as we see in the film, the mentor of the vile emperor Nero. I think he's probably even more famous now today than Seneca. And the film speaks about all those roles. What attracted you in kind of playing this figure who is a historical figure, but also maybe a person that came to us through other texts?
Mm-hmm. It really doesn't, I don't necessarily always just choose something based on a role. I'm not sure that I would have had the same kind of impetus or instinct toward doing it if it wasn't Robert, and if it didn't have a particular take on this material. I don't think I'd be at all interested in making a kind of biopic about Seneca or a series about Seneca. So that one can have a number of reasons why, but Robert was a big part of it, and the script was a very big part of it.
So I actually don't know, the film premiered yesterday, so I don't know if anybody in the audience has seen the film already. Maybe, oh wow, that's actually, that's good. So, but for those of you who haven't, John, this particular take that Robert Schwenke has on the film, and can you say a few words about it? I mean, you don't have to be a critic of your own work, but what is the style of the film? What is the film trying to do?
The film tells the story of the death of Seneca, which is demanded by Nero that he either be killed by the soldier who delivers the news that he's going to be dead either way in the morning, either be murdered or commit suicide. And he does that because Nero believes he was part of a plot to depose him and either kill him. I think the idea was to kill him, if I remember it correctly, but at any rate, so he'd no longer be the emperor of Rome. And Seneca actually wasn't involved in that, but Nero just didn't like him. He talks too much, and which is fair enough, I think, given the film. But so that's the basic outline of the story, and in this case, the film kind of hinges on the idea of whether or not Seneca was a moderating influence, which is what he might posit, on Nero's excesses and worst behaviors, or whether in fact he was just a corrupt fat cat growing rich off that employment.
Okay, that's something that we have to figure out when we're gonna watch the film. Geraldine, you're also in the film. You play a character called Lucia.
Lucia.
Is she a historical figure, or is she an invention?
I have absolutely no idea. I read the script, and I'd never heard of Robert, and then I read it again, and I thought it might be fun to do a BC drug addict, a before Christ drug addict. And so I did it. Yeah. And it was fun. Yeah, and it was fun, yeah.
So, okay, an embodiment of the opioid crisis, as she's being called.
Yes.
There's many hints in the film, I guess, to contemporary issues and themes in the world. So you thought it would be fun. As we can see from the film, it's quite wild and eclectic and colorful. Was that already in the script, or was it just like the figure that spoke to you?
I think it was already in the script. I'm not sure. I think it was. I mostly read my own part and and figured out what I was going to do. Yes, as actors do. And yes, it was certainly, there was the extraordinary Nero that has these Ray-Ban glasses, and you thought, oh God, he forgot to take them off. And slowly, themes of today creep into the film, and it's amazing. It's amazing.
Is it really true, as you were saying, that actors only read their own part and are not so invested in the context of their part?
Well, yeah, sure. I mean, I can't say I do that by and large, because sometimes, a lot of times I'm sent something, it might be to direct or might be to act, so you're kind of obligated to read the other parts, but whether you like it or not. But I'll tell you what I do when I often write out my lines, because I don't carry scripts around and I don't always want to go and drag around my computer, blah, 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 and read the script again. So I often write out all my lines, and for the other people's lines, I write the character name and then blah, blah, blah.
You know everyone's lines.
I do, but that's just through repetition, really, not interest.
I mean, is that a difference? I mean, I was going to ask this question later, but I think it's kind of appropriate to ask it now. Is that a difference when you play in the theater or in film? Because in the theater you also have to respond and be in the moment all the time. So
film you do too. I mean, no, I don't think it's very different. The person waits for you to shut up. You know, they talk. I mean, that's kind of how it seems to work for me. I'm doing a play now. I just finished briefly a couple days ago, and we'll go on another tour in April. And I think it's a French play called In the Solitude of the Cotton Fields, and that's 18 monologues. So there's almost no interaction like that. Somebody just talks for 5 minutes, and then you talk for 5 minutes. So.
And that's it. And in Seneca, you speak more or less for 70 minutes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So how about we take a little look at the clip from Seneca that is from the first part of the film. It's 15 minutes in. I selected this clip because I thought it was also kind of a mini film in itself, and it deals with theater, and it shows a lot about the wild visual style of the film, and then we can maybe talk a little bit about how you get into those roles, how you prepare, and those kind of things. But maybe it's good to look at the clip of Seneca first, please. And we have a monitor over there. So, thank you very much. This is a type of scene that people sometimes call theatrical. Is it? Or is it something else? Or is it cinematical?
It's theatrical. I mean, it's supposed to be theatrical, and it is theatrical, isn't it? It's not over the top. It's almost over the top.
I mean, as I remember, I think it's from a real Seneca play, which were very much like that. So it's theatrical in that sense, but I think it's rendered in a cinematic way. Robert shoots very cleverly, I think.
And he got a director of theater.
To stage, yeah.
To stage the theater, yes.
But he's staging like the 360 space. It's quite a complicated scene because there's long shots and there's editing, so there's a little decoupage going on. How was it to make this scene? Was there rehearsals going on, talks with the DOP, the camera operator? Talk a little bit about how you prepared
all of
for a
that.
scene
I
like
think
this.
there was considerable rehearsing on our day off or days off. I can't remember if we had 1 or 2 days off a week. He had a theater director who was from Germany, I believe, who came in and staged the play part. But then you kind of have to decide between the sun and the dust storms and what have you and this and that, how it's staged. And it's also the monologues are sort of references or mockeries of the American TV show Twilight Zone from the 50s, I think, in the 60s. The Rod Serling show, which was a staple of American television and kind of legend in American television.
So you say there is a day of intense rehearsing, but that's rehearsing the setup, or is that also rehearsing
That
like,
was
the
rehearsing
acting?
the play, and you always rehearse the setup, but Robert, it wouldn't be the case. Many directors work differently. This is all handheld, this movie. I don't know if there are any shots that aren't handheld. Not that I remember. But Robert has prepared very meticulously, so he doesn't really need you to participate in the camera rehearsals or things, just to see if they function eventually. But that he's all thought of before, I think.
And Geraldine, what do you need from a director, or did you need in this case to be able to perform your part or be your figure?
I need the director. The director. For me, the director is everything. That's the way I was brought up. The director is king, has to be obeyed, even if the film afterwards is crap, which it often is. But this one isn't. This one's really good. I mean, this is a film of genius. But the director, I was brought up to obey, and you obey the director. You try and translate what he is thinking into, not images, because that's the director of photography, but into the person.
And is that something that you need to talk with the director about before, or do you need to rehearse scenes? What works best for you?
You know, every director is different, as all human beings are different, and some directors love that you participate, that you give an input, and some directors hate it. I remember David Lean, who was off. I mean, he would stay in a different hotel from the actors. He would not speak to the actors. He would. David Lean is the director of Dr. Zhivago,
which was more or less your entrance. Well, not
sort
officially.
of, yeah. And he would, and I became really good friends with him afterwards. And I said, "But why were you so away from the actors? Why? What?" And he said, "Well, I don't want anything to interfere with the written word. I have my script, and you actors have very strong personalities, and I don't want them to interfere with my conception of the role. Which, fair enough, yeah. And then others love you to participate. Robert Altman, for instance, yeah.
And Robert Altman is actually also another connection between the two of you, right? I just found out you knew each other. Did you know each other? How was that? What was happening there, John? You were just...
I was a member of a little tiny Chicago theater company at the time. That was in, I don't think it was our first season, but it could have been. It was in the mid-'70s, and we started in 1976. And for some reason, Altman's casting director, who I think was called Scotty Bushnell.
Scotty Bushnell,
Yeah.
exactly, yes, bravo.
Was directed to go see this group of actors
Steppenwolf.
as Steppenwolf. And she did, and she decided to hire sort of all of us who were available as extras. And I drove a school bus, I think, part-time, but I was there quite a bit, and I wasn't in any shots ever. I mean, I didn't really try to be either, because there was one room, it was in summer, and there was one room air-conditioned in the house way up at the top in the attic, and I just kind of stayed up there. But eventually, I was in one scene. The film is called A Wedding, which Geraldine had a big part in, and Vittorio Gassman. And I was just a bartender that she was talking to. There were four or
Did
five
I talk to
of
you?
us. To several of us. And that was the first film I was ever in. And then I saw her probably, 30 years later or so in,
It's a good movie.
Moscow. It is, yeah. Everything Robert did, I think,
Yes.
was of interest, Robert.
So what was so special then about Robert Altman and his work with actors? And he was always working with like an ensemble, a group of actors. When you say David Lean, who didn't want to have anything to do with actors, can you speak a little bit about that, working as an ensemble in a film? What did he do? How did he direct?
Robert would never, ever say, cut. He was such a good audience. I mean, he was a great audience, and he would love watching actors. And he'd never say, cut. He'd forget. And you'd continue, and you'd continue, and you'd continue.
And didn't you have to create...
John, your microphone.
Didn't you have to create a lot of what you said and what you did also?
Oh yes, a lot, yes. No, he was the contrary of David Lean. He would accept any suggestions and say, well, try it.
Mm-hmm.
And do you like that, when directors give you a lot of freedom that way, or what is good for you as an actor?
Honestly, I don't mind. I mean, I've worked with directors who give you line readings, which is a kind of the one sort of absolute no-no in theater movies. It's something you really never do. I've even had a director give me all line readings in a language that he doesn't really speak. But I don't care. It doesn't bother me. I don't know how good I am at parroting someone else. I don't think it's a particular gift of mine. There are actors who are fantastic at that. I'm not one of them, probably. But I don't really mind. As Geraldine said, there are directors who want you to be really involved. I've rewritten whole movies. I've shot movies. I've directed movies that I wasn't the director of. I've done all kinds of things, but I don't care, meaning what do you want of me is what I'll try to do, because in the end, I absolutely agree with Geraldine that it's the director's piece. You're a figure in someone else's dream. It's not your dream. So we try to understand, what is your dream? Oh, okay. And I think I think we've spoken about this, where I have a feeling a lot of actors have when they see a film, which is, oh, that's what you want to do? Oh, okay, I can do that. But of course, it's after the film is already done. So what I think many actors, many colleagues of mine, try to ascertain what is that dream and how does that figure behave. I'm not one for going, no, I don't want to do that. It doesn't make sense to me. It's not about me. It's not about her. It's not about him. It's how does the director see this? And sometimes I've worked with directors say that they're kind of like counter punchers in boxing, that you have to hit them in the temple like 20 times before they hit back and say, that's not what I want this. Okay, great, then let's do that. Now we know, let's move on. But I'm sure there are actors who consider themselves kind of co-authors of things or something, which I'm sure there are many. But I consider myself to be an employee of the director.
Mm-hmm. And if you're an employee of the director, but at the same time, sometimes you have to help them figure out what kind of film they want to make. Are there any strategies that work better, or is this also different from director to director?
Different from director to director, I would say. You really have to, I really think part of an actor's job is, I don't want to say analyzing the director or traumatizing the director, but because that can happen too. But it's, I don't know, I always felt part of my job is that the occupation of director is a very lonely, very difficult, very overweening and incredibly demanding position. Yeah. And I don't want to be a burden. I mean, I know you feel the same. You want to be an asset and a collaborator. You don't always know how to do that depending on the person. And sometimes, of course, we miscalculate, but that's just how I see my job.
Yeah, it's interesting because it brings a lot of things together, also a general knowledge of storytelling and the human psyche, not only of your character, but also of all the people around you. Of course, I kind of briefly mentioned it before, Seneca in the film is kind of a mentor to Nero. Maybe he's corrupting him, maybe he's trying to bring him on the right path. Most of the talents here are either working with a mentor in one of the studio programs, or they're listening to people that kind of are mentoring their ideas. Have you had mentors in your life that made you understand more about your work?
The only mentor I've ever had is Charlie Chaplin, my father, who was pretty good. But I would love to be mentored by someone. I'd love to be mentored by you.
Well, weren't you in a way? I mean, even
yes.
So what did you learn from John?
Well, I learned my lines from him because he knew everyone's lines, and I suddenly had this terrible blank, And I knew them so well. I knew my lines perfectly. I really did. And I was walking with my son in Switzerland sometime before, and I said, let's go over my lines. And he said, no, you know them. You know them so well. You know them backwards. And suddenly, the moment comes and there's blank. I think what it must be like on the stage.
It's not pretty.
No, not pretty, no. And John remembered all my lines and helped me along and mentored me.
Well, you know, that scene, which I think turns out fantastically myself, is a scene when Seneca is throwing Lucia out of his house, and very difficult scene because there's a huge amount of physical action. There are coordinations with the camera that are very complex. It's a very, very emotional scene. And at a certain point, I've seen this a million times with tons of actors. If they blank on something once, they can get hung up about it, and then it can happen habitually. But you see, if you're on stage, then that's very ugly indeed, because you should probably just run home and not do it again. But in cinema, it's not important at all. It's important what those seconds you end up with. And when we were doing that scene, we finally got an absolutely spectacular take of everything. And you only need one, and you can only use one.
Yeah.
And Seneca closes the door on Geraldine, and as they were shooting on her outside with the door being closed on her, after we had filmed that scene, I did say to the rest of the cast quietly, you see, that's why she's a Chaplin and we're not. Of course, you try to assist your colleagues, and sometimes it's very difficult. And me, I've had, I don't know if I'd say mentors, but I had people I learned a lot from who, it could be their work ethic, someone like Dustin Hoffman, who I worked with for way over almost 2 years. Their delight in just showing up or being on a film set, like someone like Marcello Mastroianni. That taught me a lot about, let's say, a positive attitude. And many others. Once I was shooting a film of Les Liaisons Dangereuses with Stephen Frears, and he started getting very irritated with all the makeup people and hair people coming in and messing with the women's hair and all that, or the person who was putting on my wig taking too long in the morning. And he came into my trailer one day and he goes, well, actually, you know, you should be doing that. You're paid so much, you should be able to do that. And I said, well, I can do that. I mean, it's not nuclear physics, it's just something you learn. So if you want me to do it, I'll do it, no problem. And I did. And you learn a lot from people. It's not always in a sweet way, you know, it can't be. But I've learned from a lot of people, like Geraldine, I'd probably say my father was my mentor, and the only one as well in terms of view of the world, etc. But boy, I had a lot of help in my life from all kinds of people.
And then if the two of you had to give like one good mentoring advice to this immense, diverse group of people, something that you wish that someone would have told you when you were 35 or 42 or many ages are present in this room.
Keep trying.
Yeah, I'd say basically the same, just, I would say you have to find a way to exist with a constant dissatisfaction of what you've achieved, but not a crippling one. It can't cripple you. It has to say, okay, I got that, now I'm going to come at it like this. That's what I would say. And that's a form of keep trying.
That's keep trying, and that's also kind of stay critical about yourself. Are you ever nervous when you have to do something? Or do you ever think, I can't do it? Or do you obsess about the job you have to perform the next day?
I do. Definitely. I was so nervous about this.
I don't. But I think I have a shut-off switch that because I don't think it's helpful, I don't do it. I mean, I may like smoking, which I certainly do, but I don't smoke, because it's not helpful. So I think adrenaline is good, but nerves or worry, only because they're not helpful. If I thought they were really helpful, I'd just sit and shake all day, probably.
Yeah.
So,
what I do.
While I was preparing for this talk and meeting you, I was, of course, going through your filmographies, and then I thought, oh, that's actually pretty okay. I've seen a lot of films. I've seen a lot of Carlos Saura films. For some reason, I've seen Con Air and In the Line of Fire a lot of times. So,
that's an amazing thing to admit at the Berlinale.
Yes. Woo!
Well, yeah.
Bless you, may you be forgiven.
I don't know, maybe we don't talk about what's so-called popular culture enough. Actually, I think those films have almost, I mean, they're still famous, but they've also almost disappeared from circulation. And actually, there's some real good filmmaking in there. And you play villains in such a way that I was also a little bit terrified to meet you. Then there is television that you've been doing lately, which is probably a whole other way of working. New Pope, Space Force, The Crown, but there's also more experimental, daring, unconventional, challenging stuff. And Geraldine, I wanted to share a clip with the audience from a film that you also recently made, Luca, by Jessica Woodworth, the Belgian filmmaker. You worked with her and her husband, Peter Brozens, before in The Barefoot Emperor. And Luca is a black and white, dystopic...
Yes, it's a
dark
crazy,
film.
It's incredible. It's incredible. It's so good. It's so good.
It's extremely visual, and it's also really close to the people's faces.
Yes.
And even though it has a dark topic, I think it also has some kind of humor.
Well, it's based on
elements.
the Desert of the Tartars by Busati, and it's, you don't know whether it's the present, the future, the past. You never know where it is. It was shot in black and white and beautifully shot.
We edited 2 clips together, one from the beginning of the movie and one a little bit further in, because I thought they were quite representative for the types of acting we see of you in the film. Lots of reaction shots, a villainous nature you have as well. Maybe I'm
horrible.
interested in those type of characters. Shall we look at the clip from Luca and then speak a little bit about that and maybe get to all those forms of humor?
don't know. Oh,
Well,
this year, last year.
yeah, the film is, I think it just premiered. I just saw it at the Rotterdam
Yes, yes.
Film Festival. As you can see, Geraldine is kind of a mixture between Nero and Seneca in this film. But there's also a lot of thinking going on, I think. Or are you thinking about chocolate cake when you're
I'm
making?
thinking about chocolate cake mostly. But the role was originally written for a man, General Kane, and Jessica said, "I can't work without you." I love that. I love her. And she said, "Will you be my General Kane?" So it turned out as a sort of reptilian creature, not really a man or a woman. I couldn't get the voice deep enough to be a man, but I tried.
But it's an amazing performance. But as I say, it seems that there's a lot of thinking going on.
Yes.
So how do you work when you know you're in a close-up and you have to take pauses? And how do you keep the concentration while at the same time creating the tension and the mystery? I know this is the most impossible question, but still I want to know.
It's very... Will you answer that, my darling?
Oh yeah, you have some experience as well with those type of performances, but...
You know, I think the camera, when I started, you always heard this phrase, the camera doesn't lie, and I always responded, that's what it's for. So my feeling about it is, the camera has to be able to see you think. That's really a basic requirement. So that's what I try to do, is to think what I'll say next, even if I know what it is, to think what I'll do next, even if I know what it is, because maybe I won't do it. That's all I've ever thought of to do, but the camera very much likes to see people thinking, so you have to be able to communicate that, I'd put it that way.
Are there any tricks? I mean, you say, I think about what I'm going to do next. On the other hand, a character never knows in a film or a theater play what it's going to do next. So how do you navigate that being in the moment with this anticipation?
Well, because in life, we don't know what we're going to do next. You know, if I go like that, it's not like I thought about it for 30 minutes. It's things happen in life and you respond. And I think that's, I don't say it's easily communicated in the cinema, but it's communicated in the cinema by people who are good at it.
And also the cameraman helps.
And the cameraman and
yeah, the director.
The character and the cameraman, and also kind of the gaze of the cameraman and the director and the scriptwriter also usually come into play, always, because that creates character. I directed Christopher Hampton's play Les Liaisons Dangereuses in Paris a few years back, which is always kind of what I had wanted to do, always after I read Liaison, Chris's adaptation of Delaclos' book. But the introduction in the play and in the movie of the Vicomte de Valmont is a woman saying to her daughter, "The Vicomte de Valmont, my child, whom you very probably don't remember except that he is conspicuously charming, never opens his mouth without first calculating what damage he can do." That tells you really everything you need to know. You don't really have to do anything except show up, because the audience already knows what to make of you.
Did you feel that way when you were I mean, another kind of famous part you played in a film when you were playing or portraying that character in the film, that you didn't have to do much because he was already introduced, or is the...
It can. I mean, I think with really great writing, it can. And a lot of times you probably shouldn't do much. Sometimes you have to do more. But I think with great writing, I mean, I always felt one of the great performances in the movies, and very radical one, actually was Al Pacino's in The Godfather, in the first Godfather, because he just made the camera do all the work. Okay, come here. Okay, watch me. Okay, go away. Okay, come back. Now shut up. Now go over there. And that was fantastically successful, and I think in a way quite radical, because Al Pacino has done all kinds of performances, and some of them aren't spectacularly small necessarily, but that one was, and made an impression on me that the camera can do a lot.
So
Absolutely.
have conversations with the camera person or the camera operator. What did you speak about in this case, in Luca? Did you know what was gonna...
Well, we had seen Virginie's work and knew how... It was shot in Super 16 and in very hot Catania, Sicily, and in very strange environments, and we knew her work, and we knew that she would... You didn't have to do anything. I mean, she would do it for you. Yep.
What attracts you in this case in working on a more experimental project or a smaller project? I don't necessarily want to use those categories, but they're not the crown. So what attracts you in...
The job. I mean, the job is so... It's a wonderful job. There are millions of human beings, and everyone is different, and every person is different, and every person you can interpret in a different way. And there are so many of... There are too many of us. And it's experimental. I don't know. What attracts me is it's something new. At the beginning of my career, I said in some, I don't know, I said, I would like to do Super 8 movies. I would like to do television. I would like to do theater. I would like to do a big Hollywood movie, and I would like to do independent movies. And all of them in different languages and on different continents. And it came true. I mean, I just said it off the top of my hat, and my career has been really like that. I've done Super 8, I've done theater, I've done, well, all of the categories I named.
Many continents, many languages. Same goes for you. Did you have a resolution at some point, or how did you end up in such a diversity of films and also more experimental films?
I have no idea. I never really had a plan. I didn't certainly have a plan to be in movies. We had started a little theater. I was very happy doing that. Eventually, we took a play to New York because the artistic director, Gary Sinise, thought it would help us get new plays and new playwrights if we drew attention to our work. And a bunch of directors and actors and producers saw this play, and I ended up doing movies. And many of the ones I did ended up being in Europe, and I ended up working with such a kind of Catholicity of people from different countries and cultures and languages that was pretty astonishing to me. And I love that. But for me, it wasn't plan, or
plan.
a goal. It kind of happened.
I have a clip from one of those films that premiered here in Berlin 2018. That's Casanova Gain, the Casanova Gene from Louise Donchen, which is a hybrid documentary meets drama film exploring female desire through many forms and stories. And you play a Casanova figure in that film. And I like to see people think on the screen, and there's something else that I'm always amazed by, and that must be also related to theater. The moment where you see people sort of going in and out of performance. So we have a mirror scene from the Casanova Gain. So let's look at that, and then I'm gonna ask you one more question, and then I'm gonna open it up to you, because I'm sure you have 10,000 questions that I forgot to ask. But first, that's Casanova Gain. So, briefly, what is the situation? Because you're not turning into yourself, you're turning into your character in this scene.
As I remember it, she was a young filmmaker who had this idea when I was doing a touring production of a new opera, which was called the Giacomo Variations. And I was playing the kind of geezer Casanova when he retired. I think his last 13 or 15 years, he was a librarian for a Count, I think it was Waldstein, I think, in Bohemia, a place called Duchkov. So he was the librarian there. And that was a starting point for this opera. I toured in for a couple of years with a Viennese writer and director and a Viennese Baroque orchestra and 2 sopranos. And my kind of closest colleague, a Lithuanian actress called Ingeborga Dapkūnaitė. And so I think it came from that piece, and then she had this idea to do a kind of piece within a piece on that. So it wasn't me, it was the character that I was playing as if I were that character. That's the best I can explain.
There is a little conversation about temperament and character, which also, of course, kind of raises the inevitable question, actually, how much of your temperament and or your character do you use for your roles? What is this stepping in and out? Is there a clear boundary between what you are or think you are or figure out who you are and the figure or the role?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I ever played a character that's very close to me, really. I mean, close to me personally, meaning to what I think or what I feel or what I believe or how I interact with people or treat people or etc. But ourselves are still our only tool. So all of that passes through us on the way to somewhere. And that somewhere is who is that person. So I think I said once, probably the only character I ever much felt I resembled was the character I played in Of Mice and Men. Someone mentally handicapped and not really understanding what's happening. So if I had to say something I very much recognize the feelings of or the life of, let's say, in how I perceive myself, it would be that. It wouldn't be Con Air.
I'm sorry. Well, I'm glad actually. But yeah, Geraldine, how's that for you? Kind of this stepping in and out of a character and bringing.
Well, I must say I do step out of character. Immediately, the costume's off, that's it. And the costume is so important. The costume, the hair, the look is so important. But I step out of that costume and go home. And that's it. And I also agree completely with you that playing someone that is close to your own character is so embarrassing and awful. And I've never done it. Except a couple of dying old women.
Okay, thank you for this part. There's going to be microphones up in the Paradis, the upper balcony in the middle ring, but also in the audience. Since the light is kind of super light for me, but I first really want to look at the upper balcony. If there's already any questions there, you can raise your hand and someone will bring a microphone. I can see a hand all the way over there, so maybe we need to be a little bit patient.
Yeah. Yes, yes.
Is the microphone coming your way? You can help each other by moving the thing.
It's coming.
Hello, first of all, thank you for this very interesting talk. My question would be, have you ever hit a wall concerning your acting? And if so, how did you deal with that?
Where are you?
I'm up here.
Up there.
I'm up here.
Yes, and I dealt with it.
But how?
Thanks to John Malkovich, who fed me my lines.
Yeah, I think we all do. And I think, as Geraldine said earlier, you just keep trying. You just keep trying to move past it, trying to make it, I think in theater or film, there are moments you arrive at that that to performers, to actors and actresses, I think, that are kind of incandescent and unforgettable to you, even if they maybe don't communicate to the public. And that's what you're constantly, that's the ghost you chase. So an impasse is just that. It's a thing to jump over, get around, or knock down. You just keep going.
Yeah, totally. Thank you very much.
Are there any other questions up there?
There's somebody down.
I really have to rely on you because the light is... Okay, go ahead.
This is a question for John. I came to see you when you played in David Mamet's Bitter Wheat. I just wondered what it was like in that process, and if you drew any comparisons to Harvey Weinstein at that time.
You wonder what?
Whether you drew any comparisons to your role in Bitter Wheat. It was Barney Fine, I think. Was there any comparisons in that role to Harvey Weinstein and that kind of scandal?
Yeah, but I don't think David wanted a Harvey Weinstein, which I was perfectly happy to do. But he didn't want that, really. He wanted something more anonymous and more ubiquitous, let's say. Sure. So he didn't particularly want an accent. He did want me to be overweight, so I had a fantastic suit for that, which I loved.
It's an amazing show. Amazing show. Thanks so much.
Well, I would have been happy to do that. I'm not a great imitator, though, but David didn't want that, David Mamet.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now I'm going to try to look around a bit more. Any other questions? Oh, there's so many downstairs. And then meanwhile, maybe someone can move a microphone up there. But let's start here downstairs here.
Hello, thank you so much for this chance. My name is Alina Șerban. I come from the Romanian community. And really I'm quite nervous about this question. Why? Because coming from my community, really, as Roma, the most discriminated ethnic community in Europe, we grew up without really seeing stories about us. So this question is actually with all my heart towards you, Geraldine, in asking if it's possible and if it's okay with you to talk a bit more about the documentary that is now in production called Charlie Chaplin, A Man of the World,
Yes.
investigating for the first time, I would say, the Romani roots of Charlie Chaplin.
Yes. Well, my father always said, I am 1/8 Gypsy, which means that you are 1/16, of which I was very proud. And the Roma, then my brother got really interested and started going into the past. And he went to northern England where a lot of Roms were buried. And my niece Dolores is producing, I think my niece Carmen is directing, I'm not sure, but it is about, anyway, my father, of course he was a Rom. Of course he was, yes. I mean, he had the wildness of he was Rom, of course he was. Now, whether he was born in a gypsy caravan, because there's no real, everyone wants to claim him. They say he was born in Odessa, then they say he was born in Fontainebleau. There's a lot of proof of both, but I don't think he was born in a gypsy caravan, but he was definitely Rom.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We go to the balcony, and maybe meanwhile you can pass the microphone on to someone downstairs. Yes,
Yeah.
please.
Thank you. Hello up here, Geraldine and Mr. John. Thank you first for your talk. And Geraldine, knowing you speak several languages, are you interested in, as you said before, to work with other languages like Spanish? Because I know you have
Yes.
worked in the past in Spanish, and knowing Patricio is Chilean.
Yes.
So have you interested in more projects like that in Spanish and working like a person from other countries like Chile?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, give me a job, I'll try, absolutely. And chileno, sí, me encantaría.
Gracias, muchas gracias.
Me encantaría. Or French, boring. I actually made a film in German, but I learned it phonetically.
Thank you very much, Geraldine.
Thank you.
So if you want to pass on the mic to someone on the balcony, then I'll have a question here downstairs. Yes, please. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, it's working? Oh. Hello, and thank you very much for your sincerity. I'm Ioana, an actress from Bucharest, and I'm part of this year's acting studio. These are my colleagues from acting studio. And I want to ask you, how do you find your turn-off button that you talked about earlier? Because sometimes when you do a film or a movie that its theme is something that interested you, how do you shut down? And I'm not ruminating all the time. Is something that comes with experience, or is just part of your personality? Because I tend to expand the work through in my personal life, and I want to know how to stop at some point.
How to?
Stop. Turn
You
off.
said that when you take your costume off,
Yes.
you just like.
I think it has to do with the costume and the hair. And I mean, I really do. I believe so passionately in costume. You learn your lines and you rehearse your lines, and you sometimes know them, sometimes don't. But then as soon as you put on the costume, there's something there, and you look in the mirror and you say, oh, that's her. That's her. Now I recognize that. I recognize her. And I think when you take the costume off, that person that you're playing goes to bed.
Yeah, but the theme. Okay, thank you. And John, please, what's your button? Does?
I honestly, I don't think I ever needed one. I just, when I go to work, that's what I'm doing. I mean, I don't know that I have any talent, but if I had one, I would say it's the ability to be where I am. And so to me, work, I don't want to talk about it being sacred, but work is so interesting and lovely and difficult that I just want to do that when it's work time and not deal with it the rest of the time. That's my opinion.
Thank you very much.
There were a lot of questions in the back before, so yes, please, let's take two there.
Good evening. Thank you very much for your attention and for everything you said up to now. I have two questions. The first one for Mr. Malkovich is, in Seneca, did you address certain persons in your country, in other countries, or even like everyone in the population on the planet? And the second question to both of you is, which acting methods are you using, if so?
No, in that case, I'm addressing the characters in front of me, really. The writer's job is involved in the things you're asking about, I would say. I don't have a method, no.
No, I don't have a method. I'm not any method that I know of, except just be the person and obey the director.
Thank you.
There was a question, I think, next to you. Yeah.
Hello, my name is Olga. I'm from Ukraine, and I have a question for Mr. John. There's a film Seneca, and Seneca, he is a big fan of making some kind of plays in this area and staging this play. So, would you personally like to make a play, and what would it be about?
Wait,
Like, would you like to make a play like by yourself, to stage a play like Seneca, and what would be the topic of this play?
Well, I staged a lot of plays, but I do a catholicity of things, so I've directed many plays about all kinds of topics. I've adapted things for theater or I do a lot of classical music collaborations. The last one I did was, the newest one, meaning was an adaptation of the great Chilean writer Roberto Bolaño's text, Nazi Literature in the Americas. So I took a section of that text, which is called the infamous Ramirez Hoffman, and made a piece out of that with a pianist and a violinist and a bandoneon player and an accordion player. So I already have done all kinds of things, and I'll probably keep doing them too.
Thank you.
Okay. Are we allowed to take a question from the second floor?
Yes, I was just going to say so.
Okay, great. Sorry, I stood up because whatever. Hi, Mr. Malkovich and Mrs. Chaplin. Very nice for you to come here and do this talk for us. I'm an actor talent from last year, and my question really is in regards to the body. It's a two-parter, one for you, one for her. Mr. Malkovich, you were speaking of how sort of, in order for an actor to make a performance interesting, you always have to be thinking about something, you have to be working on something in your mind, which I totally agree with. And I have my method of staying in the body during that, but I was curious if you guys have a method or a way to not then risk being too stuck in the mind and losing the physical.
That's a very good question, yes. I'll leave it to you.
Well, I have one for you too, Mrs. Chaplin. That's
yes.
Still, so you're not getting off the hook just yet.
Oh, aren't I?
Well, the physical in movies can be very complicated because the physical in movies, the body can appear very theatrical in movie world. But in theater, I think it's impossible to do it without a physical expression. Because theater is so different than movies, and people don't really see you much in theater. They feel an aura, and they see a body in motion and hear text. So I would say it's more important in the theater, but in the cinema, it's quite different because of the question of what is the shot and what is the movement in the shot. In the film of Seneca, we, Lille Stangeberg and myself, we decided we should have a little dance, interpretive dance in the middle of it. I don't know why, but that's what we did, and we just did it, and it was a physical expression of maybe how beautiful their death would be, let's say. So it's important in cinema probably too, but you always have to be pretty careful with that. And in theater, I'd say it's a more fundamental form of expression.
Oh yeah, I mean, I can relate to that. I had my start mostly in theater, and so my biggest issue in doing film or TV is kind of toning down my bigness in a way that's very natural to me and feels very natural, but may come off as kind of too big. And that relates to my question to you, Mrs. Chaplin.
Yes.
Being such a physical comedy actor, kind of the way that I would like to say I am. I mean, not obviously as great as you, but, my own version of that. And coming from one of the, greatest physical comedians in all history, how have you kind of taken that and sort of adjusted it to more of a TV and film world, again, physically?
Well, I was a dancer for a long time, and I think that I've used that a lot. That and the example of my father, which was discipline. And discipline, I remember when I went to dancing school, my the head of the school said, you know, you're going to be a dancer. That means living a life of a nun and a boxer. And it's true. But the physical, it's very difficult. It's a very difficult problem. It's a very good question. And it's very difficult.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Let's see if we have somewhere from the heavens again another question up there. Yes, please.
I also have a question for Ms. Chaplin. You made a lot of movies with Carlos Saura, and part of them were under the Franco regime in Spain. And while being metaphorical, they were also quite political. So did you talk with him about the stories, and how did you decide how far to go with these kinds of stories?
Well, we always tried to go very, very far. I mean, we always shot a scene with a woman with naked tits or something, knowing that it would be cut by the censors. And then he could put in what he wanted. But we always thought that to fight a system, you must fight within that system. We didn't like people like Arrabal, who were fighting the system, but from Paris. And that's really all I can say, but except that it was a very snake-like dance with the censors, always putting in something that one knew that they would cut out and leaving the important in.
We have time for one last question from the big room downstairs. I'm just going to leave it to the person with the microphone to hand it somewhere.
I'm Dornaz Hajiha, I'm from Iran, and it's such an honor to see you here. I already learned a lot from your energy and your calmness, so I think all of us can have a way in our lives. I want to know, since I was a kid, my father always talked about the letters that your father wrote to you, and I wanted to know that, is it true? And if not...
I wish he had written it to me. It's a lovely letter. It was written by an Iranian journalist, I think. And it was an invented letter, and it was a letter from my father to me. But it's fake news.
Was there any a piece of advice that you always carry from him for your life that you can share with us?
No, except he always tried. I mean, he did, and he was. What I learned from him is that humor is the greatest weapon. It is really the greatest weapon. I mean, they showed The Great Dictator, which he made at the beginning of the war. People said, don't touch that. Don't touch Hitler. Don't touch, no. Stay away from that. And the English said, we'll never show it. They showed it in England during the Blitz, and people laughed. They laughed themselves silly because at last they could laugh at the monster. And humor is a lot about that, laughing at the monster.
Yeah, that's what I learned actually here in Berlinale. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Before I'm going to ask you for another applause, maybe we can consider this an applause for yourselves, because I want to thank you in attendance of this talk with John Malkovich and Geraldine Chaplin. I want to thank you for your attention, for your quiet activity of being with us, for your questions, and also I want to thank you for the questions that we couldn't address, but I'm sure that you will take them with you during your last days of the talents, and that they will somehow inspire you. So that was for you, but now I really would like to ask for another big applause for our guests of this afternoon, almost evening, Geraldine, Chaplin, and John Malkovich.